Day 630 of the Trump administration, the day after Hurricane Michael ravaged the Gulf Coast of Florida. The day we were finally able to get aerial pictures of the coastline and see what we feared had happened when this storm came ashore while still strengthening. We'll have the very latest on the damage just ahead in this broadcast. The suffering in the South and the disappearance of a journalist are competing for time on the president's schedule. But Donald Trump's past 24 hours have included a campaign rally in Pennsylvania, a series of bill signings at the White House, including one with Kid Rock, lunch with former football player Jim Brown and Kanye West. More on all that in a moment, as well as not one but two interviews with Fox News. At the White House today, the president was asked about his to-do list.
Do you have enough time to focus on the hurricane? It's a very busy day at the White House.
Yeah, I do.
There is also this competing for the president's attention, the second straight day of a stock market loss, raising concerns about the strength of our current economy and the escalating national security crisis over that Washington Post columnist who vanished after he entered the Saudi consulate in Turkey. There are also indications that the president may soon be faced with the prospect of responding to Robert Mueller after all. NBC News is reporting that the president's lawyers are finally preparing answers to that list of questions submitted by the special counsel. According to NBC's source, those questions are squarely focused on whether the Trump campaign colluded with Russia to subvert the 2016 election. This morning, the question was asked about a potential Mueller interview.
Have you thought again about sitting down for an interview or write written questions or any type of hybrid approach there?
Well, it seems ridiculous that I'd have to do it when everybody says there's no collusion, but I'll do what is necessary to get it over with.
Trump's feelings about the Mueller investigation are directly linked to his sentiments about his own Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who famously recused himself from the inquiry. Tonight, the latest report about Sessions' future comes from the Journal. They're saying Trump is looking at as many as 5 candidates to replace him. This morning, Trump seemed to deny any plans to remove the AG, while at the same time not ruling it out.
The conversation is that you are in active talks to replace the Attorney General of the United States.
I'm not doing anything. I want to get the elections over with. We'll see what happens. I'm very disappointed that we go through this witch hunt, this ridiculous witch hunt.
As they say, in any other White House, these are the issues that would keep the president busy. But it was that Kanye West visit to the Oval Office that seemed to capture the most attention today.
You know, they tried to scare me to not wear this hat, my own friends. But this hat, it gives me power in a way. There was something about when I put this hat on, it made me feel like Superman. You made a Superman. That's my favorite superhero. And you made a Superman cape.
Is this a future presidential candidate?
Could very well be.
Only after.
Could very well be. How does it feel to be in the Oval Office?
Oh, it is good energy in this.
Isn't it good energy? Yeah.
It's good.
With that, let's bring in our leadoff panel on a Thursday night. Robert Costa, national political reporter for The Washington Post, moderator of Washington Week on PBS. Tamara Keith back with us, White House correspondent for NPR. And Donna Edwards, Democrat of Maryland, former member of Congress. Welcome to you all. Robert, I'd like to begin with you. You made the trip on Air Force One to this last rally. What did you glean and what did you gather from the traveling White House?
This is a president that's barreling toward the midterm elections. He made this rally in Erie, Pennsylvania. It appeared at it just as the hurricane was making landfall in the Gulf Coast. And you have a president, whether it's with Kanye West today, thinking about his options for Attorney General, just on almost every front. He is alone right now, directing his party, dominating his party, believing in some way because of the Kavanaugh confirmation, he can rouse his own voters to the polls and somehow fend off that blue wave.
Tamara, you've written for NPR tomorrow about the fact that press briefings are extremely rare these days, while press abilities with the president have been on the rise. What's the takeaway?
The president is talking a lot. He is speaking for himself, and especially since that Kavanaugh vote, President Trump has been out there. He did 3 availabilities today. I was on a trip with the president on Saturday. He called us up to the front of Air Force One another time, and he seems like someone who is He is enjoying the trappings of being president. He's doing what he wants to do. As you heard in that clip with Kanye West, he's like, hey, what do you think of this Oval Office? He's showing off his presidency all these many months into being president of the United States.
Congresswoman, my friend Don Lemon was interviewed on his own network about what we witnessed in the Oval Office today with Kanye West, and I took some notes. He called it a minstrel show. He said Kanye's embarrassing himself. He allowed himself to be used by the president, and the president is exploiting a man who needs help. Do you think there was any strategy behind that event today?
Well, I mean, I couldn't agree with Don Lemon more. I mean, you know, what you saw there was something that, on the one hand, the president who really requires any kind of adulation, on the other hand, a Kanye West who wasn't speaking for anyone but himself, making statements that don't even make sense, either historically or in the present context. And it was really quite an embarrassment. I mean, what a sideshow that was at a time where loss of life is happening in Florida and the southern states, at a time where we have a journalist who is disappeared and likely murdered by the Saudi government. And here the president of the United States was entertaining Kanye, and Kanye was entertaining him in the Oval Office.
And Robert, indeed, for all the reasons we have gone through at the top of this broadcast, this was a giant, shiny object in the Oval Office wearing a red hat. The question to you is, among Republicans on the Hill, in the races of their lives across America, how is this scene, this tableau, going to go over, do you think?
Brian, I was at the Capitol all day today, and not a word was spoken by Democrats or Republicans as they went about their business trying to head out of town to finish their work in the Senate. But there was one scene that was telling. Senator Flake, I saw him in a corner retiring from Arizona, glued to his phone, earbuds in his ear. He was watching the Kanye West video. I went over and tapped him on the shoulder. I said, what do you think of this, Senator Flake? And he said, reality meets reality television. He shook his head and pretty much walked away. That was the sentiment at the Capitol.
Tamara, I want to play for you the interview your network conducted with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. We'll talk about his comments on the other side.
We were literally under assault ourselves, trailing members to their homes, getting in their faces here in the Capitol, effort to clearly try to intimidate us. And one of the reasons I was so proud of the result last Saturday on Judge Kavanaugh is that we stood up for two things. We stood up to the mob, and we also stood up for the presumption of innocence.
And Tamara, if anyone missed the birth of this talking point, the mob, there's no mistaking it now. I guess this is what they're going with.
Yeah, this has been building over the course of this week, starting with President Trump last Saturday at that rally in Kansas, referring to Democrats as an angry mob. You don't give matches to an arsonist. And this has been building. This is the talking point, this so-called angry mob of protesters and Democrats. Though McConnell in our interview was careful to say he's not talking about his colleagues in the Senate, his fellow Democrats in the Senate. He's talking about the protesters that were following senators through the hallways. It's an interesting tactic. It's certainly a way to try to rile up Republican voters. And there are, a number of Democrats who are saying, hey, wait, the Tea Party was a pretty angry movement itself. How is this different? McConnell, in our interview, pushed back on that idea.
I happen to have a Democrat right here. Congresswoman, how does your party counter this mob label that has really caught fire? It's become the talking point this week on the right.
Well, I remember the birth of the Tea Party and people who spat on John Lewis as he was walking across the Capitol, protesting as they were protesting the passage of the Affordable Care Act. That was an angry mob. I remember those people showing up at town hall meetings, at my town hall meetings, screaming, yelling, and threatening members of Congress. And so, if Mitch McConnell really wants to see a mob, he's going to see mothers and daughters and wives and young people showing up at the polls on November 6th to vote these guys out.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.